The impact of current design throughout the world is, for one thing, we're suffocating the planet. If it is proven scientifically that the Earth is a living organism, in fact, a breathing organism, and that if we build buildings that asphalt and concrete slab over the planet, the surface of the planet, we are in essence strangling that planet. We are suffocating the planet at large. And so, what effect does that have? We're also creating an ugly blight on the earth. And what psychological, spiritual effect does that have on us? Well, I think it's quite obvious what effect, although we tend to turn our backs on it. But it seems to me it's very clear that this sense of alienation, this sense of ugliness and uniformity that we have around us is affecting us emotionally and spiritually. So there's that aspect of it. But the physical aspect too is that we're suffocating the very system that we need to survive from. And we're creating these ugly blights around the planet. The subdivision developments, the shopping mall in so-called industrial parks, the biotechnology parks. These parks. Well, they're these euphemisms for just plain ugly destruction of the environment. Let's face it. Okay, so what are the prerequisites or the requirements that have led to the development of monumental architecture, historically speaking, and also in present day? It seems to me, first, historically speaking, that if you really think about the history and the actual happenings, the actual things that took place to create that, quote, monumental, monolithic architecture, it had to do a lot with aristocracy and social stigma and shall we say, the oppression of different social strata. And if you look at architecture in that light, then maybe those monumental architectural expressions are not so valuable. We tend to think that the Egyptian pyramids, the Temple of Heaven in China, the Great Wall of China, the gigantic and monumental structures, the churches of Germany and France, and these kinds of things are great great examples of human ingenuity and sort of the reach for the future. But in fact, it seems to me that they were aristocratic egotism. that in fact, in most cases, they were created by the oppression of others. And in some cases, the downright slavery of generations and generations of people. And so you think, well, what's so important and valuable about that? and so in that light of things, I don't give a lot of credence or value to many of the historical monuments of the past, because to me they were the aristocracy taking advantage of the poor for their own self-aggrandizement, and sure, they in a sense they were sort of a collection of knowledge of the time, which is nice. The pyramids have a lot of knowledge that we're even discovering today, mathematical knowledge, scientific, and so on. But then if you think about the overall concept of how and why it got built, then it's not such a great thing. And it seems to me, and then if you look at the shapes and forms and the actual technology that was used, well, sure, lifting 40-ton blocks is quite a feat, but the overall reason for it, just to house a few dead bodies, seems an absurdity, and these absurdities, especially all the people that died for it, that had no choice, that were slaves to this aristocracy, suddenly it doesn't seem like such a great thing. And to me, many of these monuments are monuments to egotism. And sure, they're expressions of an ancient civilization, and they're great records, okay. But what are they records of? They're records of the wealthy against the poor. The wealthy making the poor subservient to their own whims. And so, what is such a, why is that such a great message? And so I don't, yeah, so I don't give a lot of weight to the study of those structures, because the conditions within which they were actually made, to me, are atrocious. I just don't feel that there's a lot of value there when you look at the whole picture. We tend to value things, it seems, historically, based on, well, isn't it a great human feat? Well, okay, yeah, it was a great human feat, and thousands were killed, and generations were enslaved. Well, yeah, that's a great feat. But what does that mean to us now? We're still doing that today. So, when you look at the real picture of what's being built and how, suddenly these monumental structures don't seem so important to me anyways, because they're built at the cost of human degradation. And it seems to me that a building of all things ought to be a symbol or an example of dignity, of teamwork, of real ingenuity of all the people involved. And so I don't give a lot of credence to these giant monuments, because when I see the real story revealed as to how and why they're being built, they're not so valuable.